Hey everybody, before we start the show, I wanted to let you know about Monty Cook Games. Thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of Tabletop Babble. If you've never played Numenera from Monty Cook Games, you are missing out. Numenera is a game all about exploration and discovery in a far future Earth, where the remnants of past civilization are so advanced, it seems like magic. It's a fantasy game set 1 billion years in the future, on the Earth we know and love, except that it's not the Earth we know and love because it's 1 billion years from now. It is an amazing role-playing game where the people of the Ninth World suffer through a dark age, an era of isolation and struggle in the shadow of ancient wonders crafted by civilizations millennia ago. But discovery awaits for those brave enough to seek out the works of prior worlds. Those who can uncover and master the Numenera can unlock the powers and abilities of the ancients, and perhaps bring new light to a struggling world. This September, Monty Cook Games is launching a Kickstarter with the release of 2 new core rulebooks that build on the discovery aspect of Numenera, but also give players the tools to create a better future through use of tools of the past, and let players delve into a messy world of cultivating strong communities. That's Numenera Discovery and Destiny Kickstarter. Numenera broke records with its initial Kickstarter 5 years ago, and has since come out with dozens of products detailing the vibrant Ninth World, its denizens, and its mysteries, and a rich set of tools to make GMing easy and fun. There's also fiction, a short film, and a hugely successful video game called Torment: Tides of Numenera. This September, look for the Kickstarter for Numenera Discovery and Numenera Destiny. That's a set of 2 new core rulebooks. It's going to be incredible. This is not a new edition of a game. These new core rulebooks will replace the existing core rulebook, but it's not a new edition. Mechanically, all existing products are forward compatible, so all your old Numenera stuff is going to work with these new books. I love that. Thank you so much, Monty Cook Games. You are incredible. Their products are incredible. Monty Cook is incredible, and the people he works with are incredible. So check it out. Numenera Discovery is a fresh take on an existing core rulebook. You'll get some revisions to make things clearer and more fun and increase the options available to your player characters. And Numenera Destiny will do new things with your discoveries and entirely new and epic ways to structure your campaign. You'll discover new materials, power sources, and treasures that you can use in an entirely new and robust crafting and building system. That is incredible. Check out mymcg.info/DST podcast for the latest information. That's mymcg.info/DST podcast. All right, let's get to the show. This is Tabletop Babble. I'm James Introcaso. Today on the show, I am so excited to share this interview with you. I am talking with Holly Conrad. Holly Conrad is Strix in the Chris Perkins-led web series Dice Camera Action, and she just appeared in the latest Acquisitions Incorporated live game at PAX West. We talk about her love of D&D, her love of Planescape in particular. She is the real deal. She is super awesome and doing so many great things for this hobby. I cannot wait to give you the interview with her. So you know what? I won't. Here it is. Okay, everybody, now I'm here with Holly Conrad. Holly, welcome to Tabletop Babble. It's awesome to have you here.
Yay, I'm glad to be here.
So, who are you, and what do you do sort of in the world of gaming and tabletop role-playing games?
Oh, man. I got started in all of this doing cosplay, weirdly enough. I used to cosplay Commander Shepard, and I made a bunch of crazy costumes. That's how I got into YouTube, and my YouTube channel is Commander Holly, and I play games and all that stuff. But about a year ago, my good friend Jared asked me if I wanted to be a part of an official like Wizards of the Coast D&D game. And I had seen Acquisitions Inc. and I'd seen, Chris on that, and I knew who he was. So I was like, yes, please. So I was really excited. And Jared knew that I love D&D because I'm a big Planescape fan. So I have I have like a Planescape half sleeve on my arm.
Really?
I have I can show you. We're on Skype, so I can show you. I have the Lady of Pain on my arm, so it's like a little D20
That's so
at the
amazing.
top. So he knew that I was a big fan of D&D, and like I have like a D&D room in my house with like, you know, all the books and all this stuff. So he knew that I was into it, but I hadn't gotten to play like a really, you know, a long campaign in like a really, really long time. So he was like, why don't you come on the show? You'll be perfect. I was like, okay. And so that's how I became Strix on Dice Camera Action. I've always played a tiefling sorcerer, and she's kind of like my complete iteration of all the tiefling sorcerers I've ever played, manifested with my anxiety into a character.
She is a ton of fun. For people who are listening who don't watch Dice Camera Action, first of all, they should. It's one of my favorite actual play shows to watch. You guys just do such a great job, but describe Strix a little bit for people who may not know her.
She's a tiefling sorcerer. She's actually the Unearthed Arcana sect of sorcerer called the
nice.
She's a favored soul, which actually means that her abilities come from the magic weave that's from the divine sense. And it's, I don't know, like, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a reason for that. But she did study, or she didn't study, but she was kind of like sort of kidnapped by Baba Yaga and taught her how to make pies. And so that's how she got her sorcerer powers awakened. So wow. she's just kind of like a gross witch. Like, she's from Sigil. She grew up in the hive in Sigil, and she was a collector. She collected bodies for money in the hive. And, you know, as you do, and you got to make a living somehow. So she has like all these tragic, horrible things that happen to her, but she's a tiefling, but she still manages to see the good in people, even though she runs away from everything. She's terrified of everything. But, and she just like has dirty robes and a witch hat and like all this like gross stuff all over her. And she collects body parts. Like, she ripped out a giant heart at one point and just like climbed into its chest cavity and just like pulled it out. Like, she knows magic. That's like one of her things. She says, I know magic, because she does things like take the ashes of a dead saint and put them into a bottle and make Dieth, Jared's character, drink them so that he gets better, because that's magic. It sounds like magic. Just drink it. But that's funny because like when I was in college, I studied medieval history. So I actually have a medieval history degree. So I know, I know a lot about magic. I'm using air quotes. So I use a lot of that in things that she does when I'm role playing, because one of the things I studied when I was in college was folk magic. So I know a lot about demonology and folk magic and things like that. So I use a lot of that in her character when she's like doing weird stuff, like picking body parts and smashing them into bottles and like letting them ferment and making people drink them, like, because that is technically what they did, and they thought it was magic. They probably died, but
Where did you go to college? That is amazing.
I went to UC Santa Barbara and the University of Edinburgh in Scotland.
Oh, so awesome.
Yeah, it was super, super fun. I loved it, and I'm glad that I can use it a little bit in my day-to-day.
I want to talk more about Strix, but before we get to that, take me like all the way back to your first D&D experience. You know, where was it? Who did you play with? What were you playing? That kind of thing.
So I have a weird like origin story, is that I didn't start with tabletop games. I started with RPGs on computers. Nice. So I started when I was a kid. I played like any kind of RPG. Like, I had a hand-me-down PC. So I played King's Quest and Quest for Glory and all those things. I was probably like 5 or 6 years old when I was playing those games, and I played them my whole life. And so eventually when Baldur's Gate came out, I played Baldur's Gate, and I was like, this is the best game I've ever played in my life. Like, this is everything. Like, Baldur's Gate 2, like, was like, it like changed. I was obsessed with it. And Planescape Torment, I loved. Like, all of those games, those PC games, I was obsessed with. So in high school, when I was playing those PC games, and I realized that there was a whole world behind it, I just started reading the books. And so I just started reading Forgotten Realms books and just devouring all of those stories and reading all of the lore, because I loved that stuff. And then in high school, we got a group together, and I had a few games that didn't last very long, but we played a bunch of different RPGs. Like, friends of mine were into it, and they would DM. And so it was just like random high school groups of us playing different role-playing games. And we tried to start, this is my favorite story. This one, I tell this everywhere because it's insane. So some friends of mine in high school tried to start a D&D club. Mm-hmm. We tried to start a Dungeons & Dragons club in high school. And the principal of our high school was like, called us into the office and asked if we would be using real blood for our sacrifices. Like the guy was like, "Are you going to be used?" Yeah, he was like this guy was like a full-on satanic panic guy. Like he thought that D&D was from Satan, and he thought that it was like a real thing where you like act out like blood and gore and all this stuff. And he also thought that life drawing was pornography, so you can tell where this guy was coming from.
Right.
So, needless to say, our D&D club didn't last long. But this is a public school, by the way. This is a totally public school. It was just in the middle of the desert, so it was like very, very bizarre.
Sure.
So that was fun. But I continued to play RPGs on PC and read the lore forever and ever and ever. Even if I couldn't get a group together, I just devoured the lore. That was I loved the Planescape lore. I would read anything I could get my hands on.
What is it about Planescape you love so much? Because it's been clear, even without knowing you had a tattoo of the Lady of Pain, that you love Sigil, that you love that campaign setting of Planescape. What is it you love so much?
Yeah, it's weird because I think it has to do like where I grew up. So like I grew up in the desert, and it was a really gross, like really nasty part of Southern California where it's like 100 miles inland from Los Angeles. And so what happened when I was in middle school and high school and going to school there in summer, the smog from Los Angeles was so bad and all year round that it would blow, the wind from the ocean would blow this smog into where I grew up, and there was a big mountain range. So the smog would just sit there. So it was brown. Everything was brown. Like the air was brown. It was so bad that they wouldn't let us go outside and do PE because the smog was so bad. So it was like this gross, deserty, disgusting, smoggy place. And when I read about Sigil and I read about what it looked like, and it was just this, I love the idea of big cities and things like that, and this like gross, smoggy atmosphere. And I think as a kid, I was just like, these people could survive in this like adversity and in this disgusting place, but also find like beauty in it. Mm-hmm. And I think I just related to it as a kid. I was like, I had like my messed up family and my messed up everything. I was like, I'm this tiefling in Sigil trying to survive, like in my mind, collecting dead bodies. Like that was me growing up.
That's incredible that you sort of found relatable life experience in Planescape and have been able to use it. And so you said you knew Jared when you guys came together for Dice Camera Action.
Yes.
Did you know anybody else like personally, or were you all sort of strangers who had been brought together? So
I knew Nate. I had done karaoke with Nate a few times, ironically. And he's friends with my husband because they're all in actually Jared was friends with my husband first, they're all part of the whole YouTube community. We all do YouTube together. So I became friends with all of them through them doing YouTube stuff with all of us. So I knew them, but I didn't know Anna. I'd never met Anna. Mm-hmm. And I knew that she was a host, but I had never known her, like I'd never met her in person at all. Sure. So it was just fate that we all managed to get along so well.
One of the most amazing things about this is watching the characters come together has been really great, but also watching the five of you, including Chris Perkins, come together as friends has been really enjoyable too, because you've clearly all gotten more comfortable with each other as the time has gone on. So what has that been like to get closer to everybody from the beginning of that a year ago?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and even like Jared and I were friends before, but we're way better friends, I feel like, after doing this, just because I think it's just the things that your characters go through are just so impactful. After I think it was like episode 58 where Strix lived in the forest for 50 years alone, which was super messed up. and it totally happened and it's canon and great. So that's
awesome.
still have to deal with that. But we're so messed up. Like we all like went, like Jared and his wife Heidi and I, like we all went to dinner and just were like, oh my God, like this is like we were all just like, and like Anna and I were just like texting each other like 4 a.m, just like, oh my God, like it was so bad. We were all like so messed up. I think because we experienced these adventures, in our mind. But it's also like we have to use teamwork and our friendship to really overcome them. In the fact that like if we don't work together, even to create like a good show, like it falls apart. So I think that's what's in some sense made us all closer.
Yeah, it really is magnificent. And the storytelling, like you said, there are these really, I don't want to say depressing, but I guess
trials.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the fact it started with Curse of Strahd, right? So
right.
There's a certain amount of gloom that's going to go into that. But yeah, Chris Perkins clearly likes to get a little dark with you all.
I love that. I think it's awesome.
It's amazing. And the way everyone has responded and evolved has really become interesting. A lot of times when you watch a television show, characters become more narrow, right? Like it becomes shorthand. Joey from Friends gets more stupid, right?
Right.
As the series goes on. But it seems like with Dice Camera Action, with a lot of role-playing games, people become more broad. They have deeper experiences. You get to see more sides of them. And that's definitely the case with this show. I feel like Strix has changed a lot. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And that's somewhat intentional too. Like I put a lot of thought into how her characterization would almost as if I was writing a book. Like how would her character develop if this happened in a novel? Like I think of it more in like novelization sense.
Speaking of writing, you, after that episode you referenced where she spends 50 years alone in the forest, you actually wrote something that people can read, which is really incredible. What sort of inspired you to write that, and what's it about? Yeah, so
I've been a writer my whole life. I wrote a fantasy book when I was a kid that was like 300 pages. And I'm still working on, I was like, finally, like I gotta, because I just love writing so much and I love fantasy books. I love reading them, and ever since I started Dice Camera Action, I've had that like itch to start writing again. And I love fan fiction. I love reading fan fiction too, because it's like, who doesn't?
Of course, yeah.
So, but it's like, I don't know what to call it. 'Cause it's like canonical fan fiction, but technically, so I'm like, I don't know what to call this, but characterization fiction, I don't know. But it's just, I love writing. I wrote her backstory and posted that. And to even like work through how her character was going to react in later episodes, writing that helped me because I see the characters as like, again, like a novelization. So if I write that scene out and then think about, okay, this is what her character is thinking right now, when I go to role play that later, I have that in my mind. And that's kind of just like I have that sort of narrative. So it's easier for me to understand what her actions would be.
It's a great exercise too. I think writing and acting are both creative experiences, really go hand in hand, right? So do you think it helps you then when you come to your next game to have written something sort of in between, that you're clearer on where Strix's head is?
Oh, absolutely. Especially after such a big event like that. Like I had to write something because to have something like that happen and so much time had passed, to think about where that character's headspace would be, you really have to think about the trauma that they went through to get there. And that's not just one like, oh yeah, they're messed up. Like for me, I really had to sit down and think about it for like a week. But I think at the end, after I wrote that, pretty much at the end of my like meditations on this whole thing, I think I got it. And it was a lot sadder, honestly, than I thought it was going to be. It was a lot more, I guess what made it more realistic is that she was just so numb to everything.
Yeah, I definitely think that was a real treat as a fan of the show to get something like that. And that comes out of a lot of people. Chris Perkins, after that episode, posted a letter to all of you from...
I know, yeah.
Right?
That was amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to see that. And then, of course, I feel like we need to talk about this because it's impressive on so many levels. The song that you and Anna sang together. How did that come to be? How did you manage to harmonize through Skype? Like, what?
Right. That was very, very hard. That was like the biggest challenge. Well, we were texting each other after that whole incident. And like, again, we were just like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, how are we going to deal with this? How are our characters going to deal with this? Like, we were just like, we can't sleep. We're messed up. Why are we messed up from this? Like, so we were texting each other, and she was telling me that she didn't know how Evelyn was going to come back from it. And I was like, I was thinking about, at one point, Chris had said that the best thing that he could see in a game is character development from the players. And so I was like, okay, so this is a great opportunity to give him character development. Like, what can we do to do this? And we had found out that both of us had been in choir. So I was in choir all through high school, and she had also been in choir. And so we both like just singing as a fun thing. So I was like, why don't we sing a song? Like, why don't we do this? Like, why don't we just like, because Strix would have heard songs while she was in Barovia that would have been Lathander based, because that's what they, it would have been an ancient song. And one of her mentors that Chris had said had actually had the symbol of Ravenkind. So he was a follower of the more ancient version of Lathander in Barovia. So one of her teachers had been a follower of the Lathander from that time for some reason. We don't know why. So I was like, let's make a song. And Evelyn might know it, because it's what could have been taught to her by her teacher, her mentor, whatever they call in priestly lands. I don't know. Priest man. Lathander man. His name was like something like Light Face. And I was like, oh my God, okay, that's his name. It's all right. And so I wrote the tune just one night when I like was thinking about all this characterization stuff, and I just like wrote it on GarageBand and sent it to her. And then she cleaned it up a bit and then hummed it and sent it to me. And she wrote the lyrics. We met on Zoom a couple of times, so we were on the same program and practiced. We just practiced over Zoom until we got it good enough. It was so funny because when we were practicing, we tried to do it perfectly, like as you would if you're doing it in a choir, like trying to like really hit the notes. And I was like, we can't do this perfect because the characters wouldn't do it perfect. And once we got into that like mindset, like we got it. Like that was when I was like, this isn't going to be perfect. And if people think it's cringy, whatever, I don't care. It means something to us. We worked hard on it and it's going to be great. And so we just did it. And I was we were both super nervous, but I was like, you know what? The only time that you can do things in life that challenge you is that makes it worth it. And so that's why we ended up doing it.
It was incredible. And I'm a theater kid and a choir kid myself. So the people I played D&D with, they all wanted to be bards and occasionally would make up a song, but I've never seen anything like that. I never saw two people get together and harmonize. And just the fact that it was done while you were both, in separate rooms using internet connections and everything, that made it like an extra technical level of incredible.
It was hard. Yeah. We just had to like watch each other. Anna at one point was conducting. And so that's kind of how we just started. It was hard, but I'm glad that it came off okay.
It was more than that. It was so moving too. You guys didn't try to go for like a funny bit at all, right? Which, given what had just happened in the story, would have been really inappropriate. But it was so incredible, just so amazing, to the point where Chris Perkins, who eat, breathes, and sleeps D&D, said he had never experienced anything like that.
That was our goal. Honestly, we were like, we have to make Chris proud. Like that was like, that's like we're just like, we must make him proud of us and our characterization. Like that's we wanted to surprise our party, and we also wanted to like give something back to Chris for all the stuff that he does for us and all the inspiration he gives us too. So the fact that he liked it, we were just like, yes.
What has it been like with Chris as your DM?
I mean, I've never had a DM like Chris. Like I've had a lot of DMs in my life, and they've all had their own different styles and things like that. But I swear to God that Chris just has like some kind of weird empathic ability to know like what will mess you up. Like to just know it. Like he's so good at pulling out who you are as a person and who you are as a character, and just like really letting you become part of that story, and just letting that story like pretty much tell it itself, because he sets up the framework so amazingly. Like I feel like I am so amazingly privileged to be in his game. Like I'm just like, because it's just so amazing. I can't even say it enough. I feel like I'm like one of the luckiest people in the world. I'm like, seriously, like to be able to be in his game and have him do this for us is like a dream come true.
Well, it's excellent. And it's excellent watching all of you. You know, it feels very worthy. Like, oh yeah, these people should be playing with Chris Perkins. They are at the same level he is.
Oh, that's really cool. I could never think that. But I definitely try. We want to make him proud. So.
Don't worry, there's going to be way more babble right after this.
Gather round, travelers, to hear our tale.
A mysterious organization called the Sisters of Sorrow have swept up our three heroes, and it is up to Kara, Saye, and Arnadel to do battle with the forces of evil and financial destitution.
We shall battle with ancient lore.
Take them down with our sharp reflexes.
Hey, did you guys finish the last of the ale?
Venture Maidens is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition actual play podcast featuring a cast of 4 lifelong gamers.
Kara, not now. We're recording a podcast ad.
Right. I chop it with my axe.
For gold and glory.
We post our episodes every other Sunday. We've got monsters, treasure, role-playing, a cool plot, and some strange NPCs. Find the Venture Maidens podcast today on iTunes or wherever podcasts are free. Until then, venture away.
All right, back to the show.
When you went to the Stream of Annihilation, right, that was a group of people who were in some form or another known in the D&D world. You know, I think Matt Mercer had said, right, it was the largest group of people with imposter syndrome gathering in one place.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was it like to be there with everybody? And did you play a ton of D&D behind the scenes? Were there D&D games going on?
Now here's where myself and my D&D character have a lot in common, and the fact that whole time I was like that was a panic time for Holly. Like being around a lot of those people, I was very intimidated by a lot of them. It's just how sometimes my anxiety takes hold, and I would have loved to have played more D&D, but Holly was having an anxious time at that event. And I think that's, you know, it's a real thing that happens. It's like people see us, like things like that event, like people see us like, look at all these like people doing all this fancy stuff. And it's like, honestly, like everyone is just a normal person and super nerdy, and some of us like hiding. So it was still super fun. And I had a blast being the goblin, and that was super awesome. And everyone was really, really nice. And I got a little figurine of Minsk and Boo, which I'm going to paint, and I'm so excited about it. It was good.
So do you consider yourself introverted? And it's fine if you don't want to go down this path.
Oh, yeah. No, I am perfectly fine. Part of my YouTube channel is I talk a lot about this stuff, like anxiety and all of that, because it's good to talk about. Like if you don't talk about it, it's, you know, it just doesn't help anyone. But yeah, I'm one of those like introverts that's like extrovert introvert. Like it's funny because when I play Dice Camera Action, I guess I don't feel like that many people are watching us. I focus on the game and playing the game. And it's like when I post YouTube videos, I don't think about how many people are watching them. I just do it. So it's like, I don't like big parties. Like, I don't like that. I don't like being in large like parties where I have to like be like, hey, what are you doing today? Like, I hate that stuff. And I feel like it's like some people are really good at that. Like they thrive off of that, but that's not, you know. And it's funny because Strix is like a manifestation of that anxiety for me. It's like I took a lot of that anxiety of me as a person and those sorts of things that might arise in those situations and use those in a character because it's a way to, I guess, express them.
Yeah, that is one of Strix's defining qualities, I'd say. Do you think that Strix has, for the sake of her friends, who are now also your friends,
oh yeah,
Like, do you think that Strix overcomes her fear and runs away less now because she's sort of seen the consequences of what that can do sometimes?
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. After the whole beheading 50-year thing, like, she changed a lot, for sure. She definitely still has that fear, but it's almost turned into this, like, recklessness. Like, this, like, desperation. It's almost a desperation at this point to not lose them again. So it went from this fear running away to she doesn't care what happens to her at all anymore, just as long as her friends don't get hurt. And she's still afraid, she's terrified, but that's all she has left. So I think what's going to happen is they have to convince her that, like, she still has to feel like she has worth, because she doesn't feel like she has any right now, because she feels like that she failed everything and was, forced to live in the woods for 50 years.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. And it's interesting to see it all start to get unpacked, and I feel like it's going to take many episodes or game sessions or whatever you want to call them for that to sort of get fully unpacked. And who knows what horrors will be visited on you in between those sort of episodes.
Of course, I'm sure it'll be a ton. I always tell Chris, like, he's just like, he'll tell me something, I'm just like, oh, I'm assuming it's going to be traumatic. It's
fine. Well, you're going into Tomb of Annihilation next season with Dice Camera Action, right? Which isn't really like the happiest adventure out there either.
No, the only thing about that I am optimistic is that DF is super good at dungeons. Like, really good. All of his stuff hasn't been useful until Tomb of Annihilation, because everything he has is like all dungeon delving feats and stuff. So I'm just like, great. This is going to be fine. Just don't die. So it'll be fine. So that is my only hope that it's okay. All the other stuff is horrible. It's all going to be horrible. So, yeah.
Well, there's a fair amount of it is also making it through the jungle, right? And zombie dinosaurs and things. So,
yeah. I mean, thankfully Strix has a broom. So that's just going to, I'm just going to be in the air the whole time. Just sleep on it. Just never touch the ground.
So you were mentioning hags being in Strix's past, and now a hag has sort of played a significant role in Strix's more recent past, her 50 years alone in the woods. Do you think that Strix herself could become a hag at some point? Like, is that a possibility in her future? I know you have to be super evil, and that doesn't really seem to be Strix's bag, so...
Well, I think it was Baba Lysaga in Ravenloft. Yeah, I think there's definitely similarities, but I think it's like the whole tiefling blood thing. It's like that's the tiefling part of her, but her actual motivation is good. So she wouldn't become something evil. Like, she doesn't have the ability to do that. I feel like she has more of a chance of becoming someone like Van Richten, who's just so jaded from so bad things to the point where they're just insane. Like, they're just actually insane. So that's much more of a possibility. So, like, maybe, yeah, like a sort of like hag character that's trying to do good but is just totally insane, that's more of a possibility than evil. Which it could be either. I mean, that could also be evil, but it's just an accidental evil. So, there's always that possibility.
So do you think the tiefling sort of part of Strix is going to play more into her story and her backstory? Do you think that's going to continue to come up a little bit more, like her brother?
Absolutely. And I think this podcast is after a bunch of stuff is going to be coming out that reveals a bunch of things about her past. Okay, so this podcast comes out in September. I'm like going,
yes,
right? So I can probably talk about it, right?
Right.
Okay.
I won't be tweeting about it or anything.
So okay, good. So I'm just going to talk about it. And I'll assume, so Strix, technically, her family, this is a huge spoiler, by the way. Also, Strix at this point she's going to be on Acquisitions Incorporated on PAX, like on the stage.
Yes.
So I'm going to be on stage, which this has probably already happened, in my full costume. And at this point, the podcast will have already come out because I've already recorded a podcast with those guys. Nice. Strix found out, this is a big spoiler for you, I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I
Strix
gotta get
found
the scoop.
out that, so Strix found out that her family is technically from Sigil, not from Barovia. That the Wachters summoned her and Ezek from Sigil. They were not from Barovia. They had been summoned from Sigil to Barovia. And the Wachters had, I don't know what if they had it, but apparently the family that Strix comes from is called the Skizzics, and they made a pact with Asmodeus. So literally Satan that turned them into tieflings. So my guess is that Strix's, I mean, this is totally up in the air, but my guess is that Strix's powers come from, because she is the favored soul, come from possibly Asmodeus.
Oh my God.
Right? Which is crazy. And this was all Chris. This was all a surprise to me, because what's going to happen, I mean, what happened, since I'm now talking future past tense, is that Omen got a scroll for a very low amount of money that summoned Strix and bound her to his service.
Wow. So I'll ask you a couple questions about this, because this will air after September 4th. Even though this will be something that's already happened, we're talking before it's happened through the magic of audio. How excited are you for this?
Oh, it's just like, it is like panic zone for Holly right now. Just like when I did the first podcast with them, I was practically just like eating the paper on like my desk. It's like, oh! I was like, yeah, it's literally a dream come true. I've had like the nightmares where it's just like you wake up and they decide that like you can't do it, like those nightmares, or it's just like I'm just so excited. I've been remaking Strix's costume now for her 50 years in the forest, and I've been like going all out. Like I'm trying to make it as cool as I can for the stage show. So, and Chris actually gave me a whole list of items that she collected over the years. I'm making every single one. So every item he told me that she has, I'm making every single one. So that's been my like nervous activity to do while I think about the show.
Oh, that's incredible. And you'll be able to, while you're on stage, you can pull stuff out, gross jars and all kinds of things. So
yeah, puppets of her friends, just like all kinds of messed up stuff.
Did you say puppets of her friends that she's got like?
Yeah, she's got puppets of everyone that she just keeps in her robes and talks to when they're not there.
That's unsettling.
Yep, as you do.
That's going to be incredible. Well, I don't know if you even remember this in your Dice Camera Action history, but a very special Roll20Con game that you were part of a long time ago was DM'd by me.
I do.
I
do remember that. Yes. I do remember that. That was a super fun game. Oh, that was my first time using Roll20, so I was I was very new at it.
Well, thank you, because it was a lot of fun playing with you guys too. This has been awesome to have you back on the podcast and to be able to sort of talk with you about everything. So thank you so much for coming on and for doing the podcast. It's been great. Are there other conventions that you'll be at? Anything you want to plug before we go that people should check out?
Pretty much just check out my YouTube channel, Commander Holly, and Twitch, Commander Holly, and watch Dice Camera Action on twitch.tv/D&D, because it's so funny. I always plug like Dice Camera Action before my own stuff on a lot of things I do. I'm just like, please watch this show. I'm really emotionally involved in it. Like, I just want you to, it's like, I just want people to experience how awesome it is and how great of a DM Chris is, and like all of our friendship and adventures. And it's just like, and our community that's grown from it is just so awesome and so amazing and sweet. And they all like support each other and bake pies, and just, I just love it so much. It's like,
it's true.
It's like I've been doing stuff on the internet for so long, and I feel like I've finally found my people, Like I've loved D&D forever, but I feel like finally like I found the part of the internet and the part of like all the people, like with all of like everyone in our crew and like the Penny Arcade guys, and they've all been so nice, and just like, oh, this is amazing. This is like when I was in SCA in college, and it was so much fun.
That's awesome. You hear that, internet? Don't mess this up.
No, please. Holly will cry forever.
I will say the Dice Camera Action subreddit is one of the greatest communities out there. They're just so nice and everything. And
yeah, and everyone's so creative and supportive, and like it's just so nice to see people being inspired to be creative. Like that's the best thing. It's like if we're inspired by like Chris to be creative, we're inspired by each other to be creative. And if we can inspire other people to be creative, like that's amazing.
That's really, really wonderful. So one thing that I did want to ask you is sometimes they bring in Wizards of the Coast will bring in consultants to talk about stuff. They brought in Pendleton Ward to talk about Tomb of Annihilation. On our podcast a while ago, interviewed Charlie Sanders. He had been brought in to talk about something that he could not talk about what it was. But he's a writer for Key and Peele.
Nice.
So if Wizards of the Coast ever does a Planescape storyline, and everyone hopes that they do, I believe that they should bring you in as a consultant to talk about the storyline. And I just want to offer you the opportunity to make the pitch right now.
Make the pitch. I think that would be the end of me. Like I would just be like, well, I've reached my peak and just die. Like just be a corpse. No, I would love to. I mean, it's funny because I love the world so much. I'm just like, I know there's so much more that could be done with it that was missing when they pretty much just stopped it. It was like just done.
Right.
So and there's so much just interesting, weird lore and just weirdness and scary stuff that you could do. Like I would love to make Planescape a lot more like Curse of Strahd, with a lot of like weird stuff and like really like, because there's so much stuff you don't understand in Planescape, and so many weird like philosophical things and like old gods and the Lady of Pain. That's why I love the Lady of Pain so much, is because there is no way to find out really what she is.
Right.
Like that doesn't exist. Like you can try, but you'll die. Like the characters will die. So it's just like that mystery, I think, just sets up such a strange place for characters to explore, because it's so deadly and yet so like you're welcome to do whatever you want, but you know the consequences, and it's I just love it so much. So I would love it just because it's my favorite thing ever. So, and also like I could bring some of my medieval history knowledge in there. You know, you want to know some weird magical stuff. I can make some weird items. I can talk about how you can, cram like cat's hearts into like a potion and pour some blood on it and make it into something that will make you invisible. So
that's incredible. That's incredible.
Also, I love Modrons, so I mean, there's that too. They're just so cute.
So this is my sort of last question here for you about Dice Camera Action. This is obviously a thing that I think could continue forever. It's a great show. Everybody loves it. Everybody who's on the show seems to have a really great love for it. At some point, do you see new characters coming in? Like, would you retire Strix and play someone else? Or do you think we get to ride along with these characters the entire time we see Dice Camera Action?
I hope that we can ride along with these characters, because when I think about not playing Strix, I get nervous. I'm just like, no, I can't. And like I've played in a bunch of different other D&D shows, some that aren't out yet, and so I've been playing different characters in those, and like it's just weird for me. It's just I don't feel right. Like I really don't like. And so I got to the point where like I'm doing another D&D show that's not out yet, and the character I made for that one, I was like, okay, this character is somehow related to the storyline of Strix. So now all my characters are just related to this storyline, because I feel like it's like I've created my own like extended universe of these characters that are all tieflings from Sigil, and they all kind of like weave their paths together, at least a little bit. Like this character is a tiefling druid who worked the lands of a rich politician in the ladies' ward in Sigil. And so she worked the gardens in Sigil and tried to like keep them neat. And she would visit the bakery that Strix worked at. And that's her connection Strix is that she would visit the bakery. So I have to do that because I feel like I need to have that emotional connection to where my characters come from. And at this point, like Strix is such like my canon character in my head. I would be too sad to not play her.
Oh, that's so fun. It's like you're building your own Marvel universe.
Yeah. My own little Sigil sad tiefling universe. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. So everybody should go check you out on YouTube and, follow Commander Holly in all of the various social media places that they can do that, because you're awesome and you have given a community of fans such a great gift by telling this story and by sharing Strix with all of us. So
thank you.
I think I speak for all of them when I say, like, thank you so much. You've already provided more hours of entertainment than like most great television shows. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Wow, that was an amazing interview. Holly Conrad, you are awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And people, if you have not yet, check out Dice Camera Action. What are you waiting for? It's a great, great web series. I wanted to let you all know that I was part of a big project called the Dungeon Masters Guild Adepts. If you head on over to the Dungeon Masters Guild right now, you can check out all kinds of goodies from 10 designers that Wizards of the Coast hand-selected to make sort of add-on products for the new Tomb of Annihilation book that they just released online and in local-friendly game stores on Friday and will be coming to stores everywhere in just a few days. So, if you're interested in more dinosaurs, more zombie dinosaurs, an introductory adventure that I wrote for Tomb of Annihilation, or a bunch of encounters that you can put in Port Nyanzaru, or anything else. There's tons of awesome stuff from all of the creators when you head on over to the Dungeon Masters Guild and search for the DM's Guild Adepts. Or you can search for my name, and that will link you to a bunch of the products as well. So go check it out over at the Dungeon Masters Guild. Thank you so, so much for supporting me and for listening to Tabletop Babble. Tabletop Babble is still a new show, and we could use your help getting the word out and helping us grow. We've been growing, but we want to keep growing even more. We're like a big, strong, strapping beholder. We've got more to grow. So I wanted to encourage you to do that. If you go onto iTunes and leave us a 5-star review, I will read your review out loud. Verbatim, you can make me say anything you want. So, and even if you don't have iTunes, go leave us a review, make an iTunes account. A lot of podcatcher apps use the iTunes algorithm, so that will be super helpful. If you rate me, rate all of your other favorite podcasts. It's going to take you all of 5 minutes. You'll have done a good deed for the day, and that'll be great. Today's 5-star review is entitled Solid Insightful Content from Hokey_Pokey00. Hokey Pokey says, one of the few non-actual play RPG podcasts that I find worth listening to on a weekly basis. Wow, thank you so much. James is an extremely talented writer, and he taps great guests on a regular basis. Their conversations inspire me to break out of my usual gaming routines and try new things. I especially have enjoyed episodes with the Adventurers League admins about upcoming seasons. Do yourself a favor, hit subscribe, and then head on over to the DM's Guild and check out some more of James's work. Well, thank you, Hokey Pokey 00. This was a great review, warmed my heart, made my day. If you want to make my day, head on over to iTunes. All right, people, you can find me on Twitter at James Introcaso, and you can check out all of my work on World Builder Blog. That's at worldbuilderblog.me. And hey, listen, if you are enjoying this show, I recommend you head on over to don'tsplitthepodcastnetwork.com and check out all of the other great shows we have there. If you like Dice Camera Action, why not check out Venture Maidens. They're pretty cool. They're a great actual play podcast. Or wait, how about this? How about you check out Dames and Dragons, another great actual play podcast we've got here on Don't Split the Podcast Network. Still not enough actual play goodness for you? Why not check out DSPN Presents, where we play all kinds of different games. I'm talking about Star Trek Adventures. I'm talking about Murders and Acquisitions. So go check it all out at don'tsplitthepodcastnetwork.com. Tabletop Babble is a show on the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Thanks to Rudy Basso for founding it with me. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was provided by Battle Bards. Remember that RPGs are like sex. Everything's better with the lights on. Hey everybody, thanks for sticking around. Wanted to let you know about Kobold Press. They are an incredible game company that you should definitely check out. And they have great books coming at you for those times when your players go totally off the rails, don't take the offered hooks, and decide to go their own way. Well, guess what? Kobold Press has a great solution for you. First, you can check out Prepared, already on the market now, an amazing book which I own, created by game designer John Sawatsky. It is this great book of short one-shot adventures that are easy to drop into any session. Each one takes about a session or two, and they're putting out a second book, Prepared 2, because that's how good the goodness of Prepared 1 was. It has given way to Prepared 2. Prepared 2 is available for pre-order right now on the Kobold Press store. So you want to head on over to koboldpress.com, look for Prepared 2, and order it now. It ships on or before October 1st. I know I've already got my pre-order in. You are definitely going to want this too. These are great books. I am not just saying this. I use them a lot. They're amazing. Thank you, Wolfgang Bauer of Kobold Press. Thank you, John Sawatsky, for saving my game on a regular basis. Themes include everything from a goblin war wagon to icebound horrors and dragon lairs. Incredible. With Prepared 1 and Prepared 2, you'll never be unprepared again. So check it out, koboldpress.com. Go search for Prepared and pre-order Prepared 2 if you've already got and love the first one.